All right, so we're gonna try something different now, and I'm gonna sort of take you along for a little bit of a journey of setting up this yurt. It is my second yurt. It is an incredible piece of equipment made by White Duck. It's got a 4-meter diameter, and the only difference between this one and the one I already own is that this one I did not elect to get fire repellent because we're not going to put a wood stove in this one, but we are still putting a fire extinguisher. So yeah, we're going to slowly get this thing unpacked. I got a few things to sort of act as a little bit of a foundation on top of this gravel, and we'll go from there. So one of the really cool things about this, well, I mean, every feature is really nice, but the ground anchoring system, the ones that sort of hold the whole yurt in place, really not half bad. They're pretty solid, and I've hammered them in both with their included rubber mallet and my sledge into pretty rocky soil, and it's sort of broken through a lot of the rock and gotten down there. Really not been unsuccessful with them. Here we had excavation sort of done, and all this has been turned over, so driving the anchors is super easy. But even still, I have some extras that I brought you'll see me use that I usually use for slackline ground anchors or other types of like really robust semi-permanent ground anchors. And just because some of these are a little more flimsy, and this is going to be up for probably like 8 or 9 months, I really just want to overdo it in a few places. So I'm going to get to work getting this thing further unpacked and set up in the plot. So something I learned from the first one, because we did, when I first got my first yurt, set it up here, is we came too close to the hillside and the ground anchors weren't great. So I'm going to really make sure this time that I got equal spacing around this into solid earth, so that even when the wind comes, none of these things really need finicky kind of adjustments. And I think what I did at camp with the one I have up is I just measured a few paces to some of the longer ground anchors and it is in my advantage to get the anchors as far away from the yurt as possible, to help get the height sort of up a little bit, possibly even using some A-frames under them. But I don't want to really limit the amount of space that a car has when it drives up here, so I'm going to do a little bit of some adjusting and sort of get this into a place where it's like exactly a few strides from the edge. So yeah. So I think this is it. I think this is going to be the best bet. It is a little bit short on either side here, but I think for these two that are sort of close, there's 3 paces, everything else has at least 4. Maybe just for those two, I'll put some A-frame underneath the top portion of the yurt's anchor system, and that'll sort of elevate it up. And then I'll just really, like I said, overdo those ground anchors as they go a little bit, maybe possibly over the edge or close to the edge. I have a gymnastic pad that I found on Facebook Marketplace. It was like 15, 20 bucks, something like that. Not in the greatest shape. It is sort of like coming apart a little bit, but it will be contained underneath this thing in the gravel, just sort of taking the abuse I'm gonna try to fold, and I think I'm gonna use it because obviously it's not gonna be able to cover the whole inside. I might try to use this just near where the beds are gonna go inside the yurt. And then I have a piece of bamboo flooring that I can use sort of underneath it near the entrance area. So let's try to get this underneath there. I have some scissors if I need to cut it, because when you build this yurt, there ends up being 2 support posts inside that need to definitely be as close to the ground as possible, so I don't want this between the post and the ground. But that's dead center. And then I sort of know that the post is going to be there. I'll take this thing and lay it out, sort of see how much coverage I get. Oh, look at that, it's like perfect. And yeah, I don't want this sticking out, you know, beyond the yurt, because then if there is any rain or snow, it'll obviously get in here. But this should be pretty good. Make for a nice little comfy getting out of the bed in the morning. Put your feet on there instead of the gravel. So yeah, I do have these 2 little corners sticking out here, which is not great. So I have 2 choices. I can either sort of move the yurt or move the pad a little bit further in, which I just want to make sure I'm not intruding on that center post. Yeah, I think I still have a little bit of space to sort of bring it further in, but at the end of the day, I might have to cut this thing because, you know, it's a little bit long, and I definitely don't want it sticking out, and it conveniently has a few places I can cut it, so I think I'm going to opt for that. Do it. Voila! And yeah, when everything gets stretched and pulled nice and tight, everything will be covered. And I can probably inside do a little bit of some finagling, get it fully centered, but here's my door. Clear space for the center portion, ideal. So for the main perimeter, it has these really nice like rebar, I imagine galvanized. They're even pointy on the end and pretty strong. The only time I really bend them is when I bring this guy out and I've hit a rock and I'm trying to get through the rock. But I'm sort of surprised at how well the included mallet with the kit works, especially for soil like this where, you know, there's really nothing after we get through the gravel. And I got a new one now, and if you can, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's got like sand or some kind of inertial substance in there to give you a little bit more humph when you hit this. And it's sort of soft too, so like it doesn't bend these, I think, because it just doesn't have the capacity to. Like overall, the engineering, you know, like the gripping on this and everything, it's nothing crazy, but it's well made for sure. So I'm gonna use my old one, save the new one. Got 2 now, back up. And when you put these things in, you sort of go in like a zigzaggy star-like direction. You don't want to just put one in and then go in a circle. You'll end up with some sort of weird shape. So what I do is I start at the door. When you find the door, there's one anchor that starts with the door. So I want to sort of angle my stake toward the center. So I put in like a small hole to sort of get my direction started, and then I sort of cock it back and let it rip. And once I'm at a point where I can put the bungee on, it's going to clear away a little bit of this gravel. And before I come in contact with the ground here and lose my ability to put the bungee on, I'm going to put that on. And so with this first one, it doesn't need to obviously be tight, because if it's tight, it's going to pull like it just did. So I'm just going to get this driven in, making sure not to bury my bungee cord under the earth. moisture is just, in general, breaks everything down, right? So I'll replace my gravel, give it a good stomp, and we're on to the next one. And so the general idea is to sort of like go opposite direction of where you just were, so you can sort of pull tension in the rough direction of the diameter of the yurt. So there's 2 over there, so I get to pick from either one. Let me go over there. Alright, it seems like an appropriate time for a hyperlapse, so I'll probably speed this up as I put more and more of these things in. Perimeter is laid down. I didn't do the best job. You can just see some wrinkles, sort of because of the improper direction of pull, but it's not terrible. Looks okay. Pretty circular. There's a lot of redeeming abilities when you get to the second layer. But now it's time to put the posts in. Surprisingly tall for the package it comes in. But yeah, I think it's like, what, 12 feet tall? I don't know. This thing goes inside. Let's bring it over to the door. It does have a top and a bottom. You'll see it has a little hook there. That's meant to go to the top, so you can hang like a lantern in the center. In Appalachia, so you gotta have the bug screen. It even has this little like flap to prevent those zippers from potentially getting a killer in there. Alright, and I'm a neat freak, so I'm gonna take my shoes off. Bring the front in first. Inside here. It's like playing that parachute game when you're a kid, you know? Except I'm alone. Alright. So up on top of here, you can see there's like a perfect little circle for you to stick the pole. It's reinforced. You can sort of like rotate the yurt a little bit by accident if you're not careful. So you want to make sure that when you go up, you allow the top to slide ever so slightly. But we're gonna stick that up there. You sort of like use your foot to keep it in place as you sort of adjust and like get everything sort of fixed around. And ultimately, if you look down in the center here, you see there's like a little stripy line. It's hard to tell, but you can see it there. That's the center of the yurt. So that's where the pole has to get to. I'm pretty centered up there. I might back it up just a hair. But let's see if I can get this. The pads underneath here feel great. They're in a pretty good location. They're both pretty equal. So now I just gotta get this post a little bit more central. And I think one of the easiest ways to gauge that, if the yurt is going to look good after you're all said and done, is by making sure it's centered up there, and then choosing your spot down here. And then you can sort of like look out here and sort of just say, when I pull on this, is this gonna stay where I want it? Yeah, it looks pretty good. I think we're ready for stage 2 on the anchors, which are these guys. They're ingenious. Absolutely one of the coolest little toggles I've ever seen. to make this happen, I need to grab the second set of ground anchors. But like I said, I'm not going to use the ones that were included. We'll use a little bit of a fancier set. I've got a couple options. Just normal, like ground nails. They're, I think, 12 inches long. Usually like $1, $2, maybe $3 at your local hardware store. Obviously, you know, they're not rust resistant, but easy enough to replace when they might start to fall apart completely. I do have nicer ones that I've had for a little bit of a longer time. These are a little bit more corrosion resistant, and they also have this nice little toggle feature on the side of it, or the end of it, which makes for a nice little place to sort of hold down the actual cord. So these are sort of like if the other situations aren't working very well in keeping the cord placed, or I have to do a funny angle for something, these are my backups. We're gonna get to getting these hammered in. First thing to do is probably get the cords untied. Because I would honestly say at this point, even in the daytime, it's easy to walk into these things. First one I start with is the door. And I like to start from that point because it's clearly a central point. So I can follow the direction and the seam of the door straight up and sort of position myself to grab this and pull such that it's like in a nice clean direction. And I'm gonna go roughly here somewhere. I'm gonna grab the second pole here. These second poles have this little rubber stopper that goes over the metal bit, and here's the other one. It was just laying in the ground there, and I think what happened is I put this, because when this sticks out from the top, you can see it's going to create like a rain hole where like rain can seep in. So once you stick it through, you put the little rubber cap on, and you can then sort of protect that from getting rained in. So I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I got the center pole in there and closed the tent up a little bit. You can see on top, I got the rubber guard that sort of acts like a rain guard on that little otherwise hole. So yeah, I got just like an overhand on a bite, and then I just girth hitched it around this thing. Because this is the front door and there's mobility and like movement happening there, I am going to put one of these black nicer ones with the toggle to sort of hold the knot and everything in place, and I'm just going to drive it in right there. Right, that's pretty dang good. I think we got all the secondary guy line ground anchors in here. Just doing a quick look at them. Some are not as good as others, which is why some of them have a lot of stakes in them. Over here on this hillside, I'm probably going to end up putting some rocks to reinforce this or something. We'll see. It should hold for now. Otherwise, all of them are connected. This hillside's not great either. And ultimately that being a little bit lower means I'm gonna have to grab a couple of A-frames to create a little bit of height on some of them. But yeah, everything's connected. So at this point, I want to make sure my center beam looks good from the outside. Now, I can basically use these clever little toggles to add a little bit of tension. And so they work by the area here being where I put my two fingers and my thumb goes down here. And as I pull tension, when this side here starts to pull back, it sort of creates this like braking effect in the plate. Super cool. But yeah, tighten that one until it's a little bit tight and a little bit straight. And then I'm gonna go behind over here, tighten an opposing one up. And so these ones directly oppose the front door. So I should have equal pull. I'm gonna tighten this one now. So now I got pretty much like a perfectly straight pull happening through, and I can see the formation of this thing happening. And so the next one's coming outward. I like to do these ones because I had one on this side that I pulled, and then I pulled two on that side, and then on this side I'll add two more so that there's three opposing the two. I don't know, I'm probably being like really nervous about it, but I basically pull this until this looks, this like straight line here looks like it's pretty much perfectly level. Come over to this one, do the same thing. Cool. And so now I'm gonna go back around over here, and I'm gonna pull this one now, because this is the one that's next to these two that are tension. So I'm gonna hit this one and the one that's to the left there. We're gonna go back over to the front. I'm gonna hit this one. It's starting to get some good tension, I can feel it. The other thing is I could do this two-handed and probably get even more force into these, but I don't really want to. At this point, I just want to make sure my ground anchors don't come out. All right, here we've got a beautiful little yurt. And this has got to be the best I've ever pitched it by myself. It looks beautifully centered and symmetric and pretty level. Pretty happy with this product. Again, white duck for the win. Last thing I gotta do is put this cool little bamboo thing over here on the outside. Yeah, and this thing is super cool. I forgot I had these, the leftover stakes from the yurt, because I used the ground nails, and I think what these will be great for is to hold this wonderful little bamboo thing in place, even when the wind comes. That's it for this morning. I have a ton of stuff to start building out and decorating this thing. I think we gotta go grab that stuff. That's right out the front door.